The massive space station hung in the darkness like a silver city. Ships from across the galaxy docked at its many ports. Inside the Great Hall, thousands of alien beings sat in worried silence. This was the Galactic Council, and they had never seen anything like this before. 3 days ago, every planet, every ship, every communication device in the galaxy had received the same message. It came from nowhere and everywhere at once. No one knew who sent it or how they did it. The message was simple but frightening. The sleeping giants stir. The children of Terra walk among you now. Heed this warning well. Never aggravate humanity. Their capacity for both creation and destruction knows no bounds. They are not like you. This is your only warning. Ambassador Zethkar of the Vorthan Empire stood up. His body looked like a giant insect covered in black armor. His forearms moved as he spoke, and his voice was full of anger. "This is ridiculous," he said. "Some unknown species thinks they can threaten us? The Vorthan Empire has conquered 50 worlds. We have crushed every enemy that dared to stand against us. This humanity is probably just another weak species trying to scare us." Many other council members nodded. They had seen this before. New species often tried to make themselves sound dangerous when they first met the galaxy. It never worked, but not everyone agreed. In the far corner of the hall sat the ethereals. These beings were old, older than any other species in the galaxy. They looked like floating clouds of light, and they rarely spoke. When they did, others listened carefully. Elder Nixthera, the oldest of the ethereals, began to glow brighter. Her voice was like whispers in the wind. "Some doors, once opened, can never be closed again," she said. The hall fell silent. The ethereals had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. If they were worried, maybe there was good reason. Zethkar clicked his claws together, making a sound like breaking glass. "You speak in riddles, old one. If this humanity is so dangerous, where are they? Why haven't we seen their great fleets, their mighty armies?" The ethereal did not answer. She simply faded back into the shadows, leaving the council to argue among themselves. Far away, at the edge of the galaxy, Dr. Sarah Chen sat in the science lab of the human ship New Horizons. She was studying star charts when her computer started beeping. Strange signals were coming from deep space. The ship's artificial intelligence, called Aria, was trying to translate them. "Dr. Chen," Aria said in its calm voice, "I am picking up what appears to be a galaxy-wide broadcast. The language is unknown, but I am detecting coordinate patterns." Sarah leaned forward. "Coordinates to where?" "Earth's solar system." Sarah felt her blood turn cold. Humanity had been exploring space for 50 years, but they had been careful to stay hidden. They had learned long ago that the galaxy was full of dangerous species. It was better to watch and learn than to announce their presence. "How many species received this message?" she asked. "Based on the signal strength and spread pattern, I estimate every major civilization in the galaxy." Sarah stood up quickly. "Send a message to Earth Command. Priority 1. Tell them we may have a problem." Back on the council station, War Prince Krelthok of the Vorthan military was having his own meeting. Unlike the politicians in the main hall, Krelthok was a soldier. He had led Vorthan armies to victory on dozens of worlds. To him, the mysterious message was not a warning, it was an opportunity. "Think about it," he told his officers. "If this humanity is causing such fear across the galaxy, then destroying them would prove Vorthan power once and for all. Other species would bow before us without question." His chief advisor, a smaller Vorthan named Sektar, seemed worried. "But War Prince, we know nothing about this species. The message suggests they are dangerous." Krelthok laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Every species thinks they are dangerous until they meet us. How many times have we heard about mighty warriors and advanced technology? How many times have we crushed them anyway?" "This feels different," Sektar said quietly. "Different how?" "Because some ancient ethereals are scared. Because unknown voices send mysterious messages." Krelthok stood up, his massive form casting a shadow over the room. "I have conquered worlds with my bare hands. I have seen entire fleets burn at my command. No species in this galaxy can match Vorthan might." While Krelthok planned his war, the message continued to spread. On trade worlds, merchants whispered about the warning. On mining colonies, workers looked up at the stars with new fear. The name humanity was spoken in 100 different languages, each one adding their own flavor of worry. But some species reacted differently. The Zephyrians, a peaceful race of blue-skinned explorers, had actually met humans before. They had encountered human research ships near the galactic rim. The humans had been friendly, curious, and surprisingly advanced for such a young species. Commander Vexara of the Zephyrian Deep Space Fleet sent her own message to the Council. "We have met these humans. They seemed peaceful, but there was something about them. They learned our language in days. They understood our technology at a glance. They asked questions we had never thought to ask." The message continued. "We showed them our star charts, thinking we were helping a primitive species. They looked at our maps and pointed out flaws we had never noticed. When they left, they gave us new ideas about faster-than-light travel that our scientists are still studying. We thought we were the teachers, but we learned more from them than they did from us." On Earth, Admiral Jackson Hayes sat in a secret meeting room deep underground. The message from Dr. Chen's ship had arrived an hour ago. Now he was looking at intelligence reports that painted a troubling picture. "How many of our ships are out there?" he asked. "Officially, 12 research vessels," his aide replied. "Unofficially? Tell me the real number." 237 ships of various types, plus the deep space monitoring stations, the automated defense platforms, and the hidden shipyards. Admiral Hayes nodded slowly. Humanity had not been idle during their 50 years in space. While they had kept a low profile, they had also been preparing. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and humans had learned to be ready for anything. "What about the Prometheus project? Still classified above your level, sir." Hayes smiled grimly. There were secrets within secrets in the human space program. Some projects were so classified that even admirals did not know about them. "Send a message to all our ships," he ordered. "Tell them to return to base immediately." All of them. "And activate the recall protocols for any personnel on alien worlds." "Sir, what should I tell them is happening?" Admiral Hayes looked up at the ceiling, thinking about the mysterious message that had reached every corner of the galaxy. Someone or something was trying to protect humanity, but protection could also be a prison. "Tell them we might be about to meet our neighbors," he said, "and some of them might not be friendly." As the meeting ended, none of them knew that War Prince Krelthok was already preparing the largest invasion fleet in galactic history. 10,000 Vorthon warships were being loaded with weapons and soldiers. In 7 days, they would begin their journey to Earth's solar system. The warning had been given. The galaxy had been told to leave humanity alone, but some species never learned to listen. They were about to discover why the universe itself had tried to protect them from their own stupidity. The countdown to first contact had begun, and with it the countdown to humanity's awakening. The Vorthon fleet arrived like a storm of metal and death. 10,000 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of human space. Their hulls were black as night, covered in spikes and weapon ports. Each ship was twice the size of anything humans had ever built. War Prince Krelthok stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Bone Crusher. Through the massive windows, he could see the human colonies of Proxima Centauri, small cities on 3 different planets, home to maybe 2 million humans total. It would be easy. "Scan for defensive installations," he ordered. "Very few detected, War Prince," his scanner operator replied. "Some orbital platforms, a handful of patrol ships. Nothing that could threaten us." Krelthok smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Perfect. Open communications with the largest human settlement." The signal went out, and soon a human face appeared on the main screen. It was a woman with brown skin and determined eyes. "Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Earthship Defiant." "This is Captain Vasquez of the Proxima Defense Force," she said. "You are entering human space without permission. Please state your intentions." Krelthok stepped forward so the human could see his full height and the weapons on his belt. "I am War Prince Krelthok of the Vorthon Empire. You will surrender immediately, or we will destroy every human in this system." Captain Vasquez was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was steady. "I'm afraid that's not going to happen. Please leave our space peacefully, and no one has to get hurt." The War Prince laughed. "You have 50 ships. I have 10,000. You have 2 million people. I have conquered billions. Last chance, human. Surrender or die." "Then I guess we die fighting," Vasquez said, and cut the connection. Krelthok was actually impressed. Most species begged for mercy at this point. But impressive or not, the result would be the same. "All ships, open fire. Show the galaxy what happens when you ignore Vorthon demands." The attack began with a wall of plasma fire that lit up space like a second sun. Human shields held for maybe 30 seconds before they failed. The human ships were fast and clever, but they were outnumbered 200-1. Captain Vasquez fought her ship until the very end. The Defiant danced between Vorthon vessels, firing everything it had. But even the best human technology could not overcome such odds. When the ship finally exploded, it took 3 Vorthon vessels with it. The orbital platforms lasted a bit longer, but not much. Then the Vorthons began bombing the colonies themselves. Plasma beams struck cities, turning buildings to glass and people to ash. The attack was broadcast on all frequencies as Krelthok wanted everyone to see Vorthon power. On Proxima Prime, a little girl named Lisa Chen ran through burning streets, calling for her mother. A Vorthon dropship landed nearby and soldiers in power armor stepped out. They saw the child and raised their weapons. The transmission suddenly cut to static. The massacre lasted 6 hours. When it was over, 3 human colonies were gone. 2 million people were dead. The Vorthon fleet regrouped and prepared to move toward Earth itself, but they had made one critical mistake. They had broadcast everything. On Earth, in a bunker deep beneath the Pentagon, Admiral Jackson Hayes watched the recordings in complete silence. Around him, other officers wept openly as they saw human children running from plasma fire, families torn apart, cities burning. The last transmission from Captain Vasquez played over and over. "Tell Earth. Tell them what they did to us." When the recording ended, the room was silent except for the sound of people crying. Admiral Hayes stood up slowly, his face like carved stone. "Sir?" His aide whispered. "What are your orders?" Hayes was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was calm, measured, and somehow more frightening than any scream of rage. "Send a message to Luna Command. Tell them to activate Project Prometheus. Authorization code Broken Arrow. Also, send recall orders to all deep space assets. Every ship, every station, every platform. I want them home in 72 hours. Sir, what about our diplomatic vessels? Our trade missions? Everyone comes home. Now." The aide nodded and began sending messages. Hayes turned to another officer. "Contact the Martian shipyards. Tell them to begin emergency production protocols. I want every ship they can build as fast as they can build them. Admiral, that will reveal our hidden facilities." "Good. It's time the galaxy knew who they were dealing with." Within hours, things began happening across human space that should have been impossible. Military installations that did not officially exist suddenly powered up. Ships that had been scrapped years ago reappeared on tracking systems. The moon, which everyone thought was just a natural satellite, began opening like a flower. Commander Sarah Chen, now in charge of the Terra Defense Force, stood on the bridge of her new flagship. The UES Reckoning was 15 kilometers long and armed with weapons that bent the laws of physics. It was one of 50 such ships that had been hidden in the asteroid belt for 20 years. "Ma'am," her weapons officer said, "we're receiving targeting data from the Deep Space Network. The Vorthon fleet is moving toward Earth. How long until they arrive?" 18 days at their current speed," Sarah nodded. "More than enough time. Begin deployment of the defense grid and send a message to Admiral Hayes. Tell him the fleet is ready." Back on his flagship, War Prince Krelthok was feeling very pleased with himself. The destruction of the human colonies had been broadcast across the galaxy, and he was already receiving messages of congratulation from other Vorthon commanders. "War Prince," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the human home system. Put it on screen. Let's see them beg." But the face that appeared was not begging. Admiral Hayes looked directly into the camera, his eyes cold as space itself. "I am Admiral Jackson Hayes of the United Earth Navy," he said. "You have attacked our colonies. You have murdered our people. You have made a very serious mistake." Krelthok laughed. "Old man, I have just destroyed your outer worlds with ease." "You're a pathetic species, and let me finish," Hayes said quietly, and something in his voice made Krelthok stop talking. "You killed 2 million humans. Men, women, children. You broadcast their deaths like entertainment. You seem to enjoy it." Hayes leaned forward slightly. "We're going to show you what humans do when we stop being polite. We're going to show you what happens when you make us angry. And when we're done with you, we're going to make sure the rest of the galaxy understands exactly why that warning was sent." The transmission ended. Krelthok stared at the blank screen for a moment, then burst into laughter. "Did you hear that? The human thinks he can threaten us. A species that couldn't even defend 3 small colonies." But his chief advisor, Sektar, was looking at the long-range sensors with growing worry. War Prince. I'm reading massive energy signatures from the inner system. Ships are appearing where there were none before. How many ships? I'm not sure. The sensors keep finding more. On the bridge of the reckoning, Sarah Chen smiled grimly as she watched the Vorten fleet approach. They had no idea what was waiting for them. Humanity had spent 50 years preparing for this day, hoping it would never come but ready when it did. All ships, this is Admiral Chen, she broadcast to the human fleet. Remember what they did to our people. Remember the children of Proxima Prime. Today we teach the galaxy that there are consequences for evil. The human fleet began to move. It was smaller than the Vorten Armada, but it moved with perfect coordination. Every ship knew its role. Every captain understood the mission. War Prince Krelthok was about to learn why the universe had tried to warn him. He was about to discover that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their tactics. It was their absolute refusal to forgive those who hurt the innocent. The real war was about to begin. The first battle happened in the Kepler system, halfway between Earth and the Vorten fleet. War Prince Krelthok expected another easy victory. He had 10,000 ships against what his sensors showed as maybe 300 human vessels. He could not have been more wrong. The human ships moved like nothing the Vortens had ever seen. They appeared behind enemy lines using some kind of space-folding technology. They fired weapons that didn't just destroy Vorten ships. They made them disappear completely, erased at the level of atoms. Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the reckoning, watching as her fleet tore through Vorten formations. Her ship's main weapon was something called a quantum disruptor. When it fired, enemy vessels simply stopped existing. Target their command ship, she ordered. Ma'am, that's a dreadnought. Our weapons may not be able to penetrate its armor. Sarah smiled coldly. Then we'll go through it instead. The reckoning fired its main gun. The beam of energy punched through the Vorten dreadnought's shields, through its armor, and out the other side. The massive ship split in half and exploded. Across the battlefield, human tactics proved devastating. They didn't fight like any other species the Vorthans knew. They took impossible risks, sacrificed their own ships to destroy multiple enemies, and showed a coordination that seemed almost supernatural. But the most frightening thing was their psychology. When Vorten ships disabled human vessels, human crews would trigger self-destruct charges rather than be captured. When human ships were outnumbered, they would ram enemy vessels at full speed. They fought with a combination of ice-cold planning and burning fury that no other species could match. War Prince Krelthok watched his fleet being torn apart and felt fear for the first time in his life. In 6 hours of fighting, he had lost 3,000 ships. The humans had lost maybe 50. Retreat, he ordered. Fall back to the outer rim. But the humans didn't let them go. Human ships pursued the fleeing Vorthans, picking off stragglers with surgical precision. This wasn't just a battle, it was a hunt. Back on the Galactic Council station, emergency sessions ran day and night as reports came in from the fighting. The other species watched in growing horror as they realized what they were seeing. Ambassador Veltar of the peaceful Zephyrian spoke for many when he said, "This isn't how war is supposed to work. The humans aren't just fighting, they're rewriting the rules of conflict itself." The ancient ethereals finally spoke again. Elder Nyxthera's form glowed brighter as she addressed the council. "You are witnessing humanity's true nature," she said. "They are not just another species that happens to be good at war. They are evolutionary perfection at the art of survival. Every challenge makes them stronger. Every enemy teaches them new ways to fight." "But surely they have limits," protested Ambassador Thexelon of the Corvin Republic. "No species can sustain this level of warfare indefinitely." The ethereal's laughter was like wind through empty spaces. "You still don't understand. This is not their limit. This is them being careful. They are still trying to minimize casualties and limit the conflict. You have not yet seen what happens when humans decide that total war is necessary. On Earth, that decision was already being made." Admiral Hayes stood in the war room, looking at casualty reports from the outer colonies. 3 million human civilians dead. The number burned in his mind like acid. "Sir," his aide reported, "our fleet has engaged the Vorthans in the Kepler system. Admiral Chen reports heavy enemy losses." "Good. What about intelligence on their homeworlds?" "Our deep space reconnaissance has located 17 major Vorthan colonies and their capital world. They have approximately 40 billion citizens total. Hayes nodded slowly. Prepare Operation Clean Slate. Sir, that protocol was designed for extinction-level threats. 3 million of our people are dead because we were too slow to act. I won't make that mistake again. The Vorthans wanted to see human capacity for destruction. Let's show them. Within hours, human ships began appearing throughout Vorthon space. Not just military vessels, but ships carrying something much worse. Psychological warfare specialists. Dr. Elena Martinez had been studying alien psychology for 20 years. Now she stood on the bridge of the stealth ship Whisper, preparing to broadcast a very special message to every Vorthon world. Are we ready? She asked her team. Yes, ma'am. We've isolated their communication frequencies and bypassed their security systems. Begin transmission. Across the Vorthon Empire, on every screen, every radio, every communication device, the same recording began to play. It was the dying scream of War Prince Krelthok as his ship exploded in the Kepler system. Over and over, the sound of their greatest war leader calling for his mother as he burned. But that was just the beginning. Human ships began systematically destroying Vorthon military bases, but they did it slowly, methodically. They made sure every Vorthon in the galaxy could watch their empire crumble piece by piece. When the Vorthons deployed biological weapons against human colonies, humanity's response was swift and terrible. Human scientists had spent decades studying alien biology. They released modified viruses that didn't kill Vorthons. They just made them sick enough to be useless as soldiers. When the Vorthons targeted human civilian centers, humanity responded by doing something no other species had ever thought of. They didn't attack Vorthon civilians directly. Instead, they systematically destroyed every piece of infrastructure that made Vorthon civilization possible. Power plants, water treatment facilities, communication networks, transportation hubs. All of it went dark. Suddenly, 40 billion Vorthons found themselves living in the Dark Ages, completely cut off from the technology that made their empire possible. Admiral Sarah Chen received reports from across the war zone. Ma'am, the Vorthon military is in complete disarray. Their government is trying to negotiate a surrender. Ignore them, Sarah said coldly. They had their chance to surrender before they murdered our people. Continue the operation. But something else was happening that would change everything. Other species across the galaxy began to take notice of human tactics and technology. And they made a disturbing discovery. Dr. Velnara, the galaxy's leading expert on evolutionary biology, published a report that sent shockwaves through the scientific community. After studying captured human genetic material and technology, she had reached a terrifying conclusion. Humans are not just another intelligent species, her report stated. They represent something entirely new in galactic evolution. Their ability to learn, adapt, and improve is beyond anything we have previously encountered. In 6 months of war, they have advanced their technology by what should have taken decades. The report continued. More disturbing is their psychological profile. They form deep emotional bonds with other beings, showing remarkable capacity for empathy and cooperation. But when those bonds are threatened, they display a capacity for focused destruction that has no equal in known space. We are not dealing with a typical aggressive species. We are dealing with a species that can simultaneously love and hate with equal intensity. They can create wonders and commit genocide with the same hands. They are, in evolutionary terms, the perfect survivors. Elder Nixthera read the report and nodded sadly. She had tried to warn them. The Ethereals had seen this before, millions of years ago when humanity was still learning to use tools. Even then, they had recognized the potential. On the bridge of his crippled flagship, War Prince Krelthok finally understood what he had awakened. The human fleet surrounded his position in the dead Vorthon system, where his homeworld used to orbit. Now there was only debris and the memory of 40 billion lives. A transmission came from the lead human ship. Admiral Chen's face appeared on his screen, her expression unreadable. War Prince Krelthok, she said. You wanted to show the galaxy Vorthon power. Instead, you have shown them human resolve. Your empire is gone. Your military is destroyed. Your people survive only because we allow it. Krelthok tried to speak, but no words came. The galaxy will remember this war, Chen continued. They will remember that humans tried for peace first. They will remember that you chose to murder our children, and they will remember what happened to you because of that choice. The transmission ended. War Prince Krelthok, conqueror of 50 worlds, sat alone in the darkness of his dying ship and finally understood why the universe had tried to warn him. Humanity was not just another species. They were something entirely new, and they had only just begun to show the galaxy what they were capable of. The Vorthan Empire's destruction sent shockwaves across the galaxy. In less than 2 years, humanity had gone from unknown species to the most feared force in known space. But fear was not enough for some species. Fear made them desperate, and desperate beings do stupid things. The Skarn Collective was the galaxy's second most powerful military force. Unlike the Vorthans, they didn't conquer through brute force. They were smart, patient, and they had been watching the war very carefully. Supreme Commander Vexthul of the Skarn called an emergency meeting of their war council. His species looked like giant spiders made of metal and flesh, with multiple eyes that could see across different spectrums of light. The humans have revealed their capabilities, he told his commanders, but they have also revealed their weaknesses. They are emotional. They care about civilians. They try to limit destruction when possible. And you see this as a weakness we can exploit? Asked General Kriktar. Exactly. The Vorthans fought humans like they would fight any other species. They made it a simple military conflict. We will make it personal. The Skarn plan was diabolical in its simplicity. They would not attack human military targets. Instead, they would attack human allies, the small, peaceful species that had begun working with humans. They would force humanity to choose between protecting their friends and protecting themselves. They started with the Zephyrians. Commander Vexara, who had first warned the galaxy about human capabilities, watched in horror as Skarn ships appeared over her homeworld. The attack was swift and brutal. Zephyrian cities burned while the attackers broadcast one simple message. This is what happens to species that help humans. When Admiral Sarah Chen received word of the attack, she felt something cold settle in her chest. The Zephyrians had been friends to humanity. They had shared knowledge, opened trade routes, and welcomed human explorers with kindness. How many dead? She asked. Preliminary reports suggest 50 million Zephyrian civilians, her aide replied. The Skarn are moving toward the Alterian colonies next. Sarah closed her eyes. The Alterians were even more vulnerable than the Zephyrians. Their entire species numbered only 200 million, spread across a dozen small worlds. Ma'am, what are your orders? Sarah opened her eyes and her staff took an involuntary step backward. They had seen that look before, during the worst days of the Vorthan War. Contact Admiral Hayes on Earth, tell him we need to implement Protocol 7. Ma'am, Protocol 7 is... I know what it is. Do it. Protocol 7 was something humanity hoped they would never need to use. It was the plan for fighting a war on multiple fronts against multiple enemies, while protecting non-combatant species. It required resources and tactics that pushed human capabilities to their absolute limit. On Earth, Admiral Hayes read the report and felt his heart grow heavy. He had hoped the destruction of the Vorthan Empire would be enough to discourage other aggressors. Instead, it seemed to have made some species even more desperate to stop humanity before they became too powerful. Activate the reserve fleets, he ordered. All of them. And begin Phase 2 of the Prometheus project. Sir, Phase 2 will reveal capabilities we've kept hidden for decades. Then it's time to stop hiding. Across human space, things began happening that defied everything. The galaxy thought they knew about human technology. Ships that had been disguised as asteroids suddenly powered up and revealed themselves as mobile battle stations. Entire moon-sized construction facilities emerged from gas giant atmospheres where they had been hiding for 20 years. But the most shocking revelation came from Mars itself. The planet's surface cracked open along hidden seams, revealing that the entire world had been converted into one massive shipyard. Thousands of human vessels emerged from underground construction bays, ships built with technology that made their previous fleet look primitive. Dr. Elena Martinez, now serving as head of human strategic analysis, made a disturbing discovery while studying the pattern of Skarn attacks. Admiral, she reported to Sarah Chen, the Skarn aren't just trying to hurt our allies. They're studying our response patterns. Every time we deploy ships to protect a threatened world, they're analyzing our tactics, our technology, our weaknesses. You think they're preparing for a larger assault? I think they're preparing to hit Earth directly. But not with ships, with something else. Martinez was right. Deep in Skarn space, their scientists had been working on something they called the Void Plague. It was a weapon that would consume entire star systems. turning matter into energy and spreading like a cosmic infection. The plan was simple. Release the void plague near Earth's solar system and let it consume humanity's homeworld. Even if humans could stop it eventually, the death of their home planet would break their spirit. But the Skarn had made the same mistake as the Vorthons. They had underestimated human intelligence networks. Agent Lisa Park had been operating undercover in Skarn space for 3 years. She looked human, but extensive surgical modification allowed her to pass as a Calarian traitor. When she discovered the Void Plague Project, she knew she had found something that could end human civilization. Her message to Earth was brief. They have a planet killer. It spreads. Stop them now or we all die. When Admiral Hayes received the message, he made the hardest decision of his life. He activated Omega Protocol, humanity's final contingency plan. Send the message to all human commanders, he ordered. Authorization Omega. Implement Total War Doctrine. Across human space, the last restraints came off. Humanity had been fighting carefully, trying to minimize civilian casualties and limit destruction. Now they fought like the apex predators they had always been. Human ships began using weapons that had been theoretical until this moment. They deployed nanite swarms that could consume entire fleets in minutes. They used quantum tunneling bombs that could destroy targets through armor, shields, and space itself. But the most terrifying human innovation was psychological. They began broadcasting the final moments of every enemy they destroyed. When a Skarn commander died, his death screams were sent to every Skarn world. When a Skarn ship exploded, the recordings were played on every frequency until Skarn morale began to crack. Admiral Sarah Chen led the assault on the Skarn research facility, where the Void Plague was being developed. Her fleet arrived to find it defended by the largest Skarn battle group ever assembled. "Ma'am, enemy forces outnumber us 3-1, her tactical officer reported. "Then we'll have to fight harder," Sarah replied calmly. The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships fought with a desperation born of knowing that failure meant the death of their homeworld. They threw themselves against Skarn defenses with absolute disregard for their own survival. The human ship Darwin's Revenge, badly damaged and losing life support, rammed itself into the research station's main laboratory. The explosion destroyed the Void Plague samples and killed the scientists who had created them. When the battle ended, the Skarn facility was gone. But so were half of the human ships that had participated in the attack. Supreme Commander Vexthul received the reports with growing horror. His superweapon was destroyed, his best fleets were in ruins, and human forces were systematically hunting down every Skarn military installation in the galaxy. "Perhaps," suggested General Kriktar quietly, "we should consider surrender." Vexthul looked at his general with all 8 eyes. "Surrender to them? After what we've done? The alternative is extinction. Look at what happened to the Vorthons." But it was too late for surrender. On Earth, Admiral Hayes had made his decision. The Skarn had tried to destroy humanity's homeworld. For that, there could be no forgiveness. "Begin Operation Final Solution," he ordered. Across the galaxy, other species watched in terror as humanity demonstrated what total war actually meant. They didn't just destroy Skarn military forces. They systematically dismantled everything that made Skarn civilization possible. The ancient ethereals met in emergency council for the first time in 10,000 years. Elder Nixthera spoke for all of them when she said, "They have passed the threshold. Humanity is no longer becoming what we feared they might become. They have become it. Should we intervene?" asked another elder. "With what? They are beyond our power to stop now. We can only hope that when this is over, they remember how to choose creation over destruction." The war between humanity and the Skarn collective lasted 8 months. When it ended, the Skarn species had been reduced to a few million survivors living on reservation worlds under human oversight. But the galaxy had learned something that would change everything. Humanity was not just another strong species. They were something entirely new, something that could reshape the very nature of galactic civilization. And they were just getting started. 5 years after the Skarn War ended, the galaxy was a very different place. The Galactic Council met in a new station, one built with human technology and protected by human ships. For the first time in galactic history, the most powerful military force was also the most generous. Admiral Sarah Chen, now promoted to Supreme Commander of Human Forces, stood before the assembled representatives of 200 species. Her uniform bore medals from a dozen wars, but her eyes held something that surprised many who met her: hope. 5 years ago, we were attacked by species who saw us as a threat, she began. They were right to be afraid, but not for the reasons they thought. We were not dangerous because we wanted to conquer. We were dangerous because we wanted to build. In the audience, Elder Nixithera of the Ethereals listened carefully. The ancient being had watched humanity's transformation from hidden observers to galactic leaders. What amazed her was not their military might. She had expected that. What amazed her was their capacity for forgiveness. Today, former Vorthon colonies are home to the most advanced medical research centers in the galaxy, Chen continued. Former Skarn worlds host universities where young beings from 100 species learn side by side. We did not come to rule over you. We came to build something better together. The transformation had not been easy. After the wars ended, humanity faced a choice that would define their future. They could rule through fear, as the Vorthons had done. They could isolate themselves and ignore the galaxy's problems. Or they could do something no species had ever attempted: use their power to lift others up. They chose to build. Dr. Elena Martinez, now Director of Interspecies Cooperation, had spent the last 5 years working with former enemies. The Vorthon survivors, once proud conquerors, now worked alongside human scientists to develop technology that could heal instead of destroy. The most remarkable thing, she told her research team, is not how quickly they learned our science. It's how quickly they learned our values. On former Vorthon homeworld, now called New Harmony, a Vorthon child named Kextar played with a human girl named Amy. Their parents, a Vorthon engineer and a human teacher, watched from nearby, still amazed that such friendship was possible. My father fought in the war, Kextar told Amy as they built a model spaceship together. He said humans were monsters. What does he say now? Amy asked. He says humans are the reason I get to have friends like you. The scene was repeated across the galaxy. Human teachers worked in schools on dozens of worlds, sharing not just knowledge but ideas about freedom, cooperation, and individual rights. Human engineers redesigned entire planetary systems to be more efficient and less harmful to the environment. But perhaps the most important change was in how the galaxy thought about conflict itself. Commander Veltar of the Zephyrians, whose homeworld had been devastated by the Skarn, now served as Deputy Director of the new Galactic Peace Corps. It was a human idea, an organization dedicated to preventing conflicts before they started. Before humans came, he explained to new recruits, we thought peace was simply the absence of war. Humans taught us that real peace requires justice, understanding, and the willingness to help others achieve their potential. The Peace Corps was made up of beings from dozens of species, but it operated on human principles. When disputes arose between worlds, they sent teachers instead of soldiers. When resources were scarce, they sent engineers to find new solutions. When species felt threatened, they sent diplomats who actually listened. On Earth, Admiral Jackson Hayes, now retired, sat in his garden and read reports from across the galaxy. The old warrior smiled as he learned about new trade routes, successful diplomatic missions, and species that were working together for the first time in their history. His granddaughter, a bright 12-year-old named Sarah, named after Admiral Chen, sat beside him reading a book about alien biology. "Grandpa," she asked, "why did those aliens attack us? Didn't they know we just wanted to be friends?" Hayes thought about the question carefully. Sometimes people who have been hurt for a long time can't imagine that someone might want to help them, instead of hurting them more. The Vorthons and Skarn had been fighting for so long they forgot that there were other ways to live. But we showed them. We showed them. Sometimes that's the most important thing you can do. Show people that there's a better way. The old admiral didn't tell his granddaughter about the darker side of those early years. How close humanity had come to becoming exactly what their enemies feared. How tempting it had been to rule through strength instead of serving through compassion. The decision to choose creation over destruction had not been automatic. It had been a conscious choice, made by millions of humans who decided that their children deserved a better galaxy than the one they had inherited. On the edge of the galaxy, human exploration ships continued to push into unknown space. Captain James Chen, no relation to Admiral Chen, but proud to share the name, commanded the deep space vessel Pathfinder as it investigated signals from beyond the galactic rim. "Captain," his science officer reported, "we're receiving structured transmissions from the void between galaxies. It appears to be some kind of greeting. From who? Unknown. But the mathematical patterns suggest a level of technological advancement far beyond anything we've encountered." Captain Chen smiled. Humanity had spent the last decade proving that first contact didn't have to mean conflict. Whatever waited in the darkness between galaxies, they would meet it with open hands and open minds. The ancient ethereals had finally revealed the truth about the original warning that had started everything. Elder Nix Thura met privately with Admiral Chen to explain. "We sent that message," she admitted. "We had been watching humanity for millions of years, even when you were barely using tools. We could see your potential, both for creation and destruction. You were trying to protect us? We were trying to protect everyone, including you. We knew that if you were forced to reveal your capabilities through violence, it would change you. We hoped to prevent that." Chen was quiet for a moment. "Do you regret that it didn't work?" The ethereal's form brightened with what might have been amusement. "Look around you, young Admiral. Your species has turned two of the galaxy's most aggressive empires into thriving centers of learning and cooperation. You have created the first truly peaceful galactic government in recorded history. You have shown 100 species that there are alternatives to endless conflict. If this is what happens when you're forced to fight, I think the galaxy is very fortunate indeed." The meeting ended with plans for the next great human project, an expedition to the Andromeda Galaxy, crewed by beings from dozens of species working together. It would be the longest journey ever attempted. But humanity had taught the galaxy that impossible was just another word for hasn't been done yet. As news of the expedition spread, applications poured in from across known space. Young beings who had grown up in the new galaxy, where cooperation was normal and war was rare, volunteered to spend their lives exploring the unknown. On the former Skarn homeworld, now called Second Chance, Supreme Commander Vexthul, now simply Professor Vexthul, taught military history to mixed classes of humans, Skarn and other species. The old way of thinking, he told his students, was that the strong survived by defeating the weak. Humans taught us a different truth. The strong survive by making others strong. One of his students, a young Skarn named Kliktar, raised her hand. "Professor, what would have happened if we had listened to the original warning?" The old warrior considered the question. "Perhaps we would have had a more peaceful first contact. Perhaps we would have learned cooperation without the need for war. But perhaps we also would never have discovered just how much better we could become. Do you think the humans planned it this way?" Vexthul's multiple eyes focused on something far away. "No, young one. I think they simply refused to let our mistakes define their future. And in doing so, they showed us all how to do the same. The galaxy had been warned, never aggravate humanity. They had ignored the warning and learned the hard way why it had been given. But in the end, they had discovered something more valuable than peace through fear. They had discovered peace through hope. And in the vast darkness between galaxies, ancient signals continued to pulse toward the Milky Way, as if something out there had been waiting a very long time for the day when humanity and their allies would be ready to take the next great step into the unknown. The universe had tried to warn them. They had ignored it, and in doing so, they had all become something better than they had ever been before.